When one of the most important people in finance, JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon, drops his thoughts on AI, I tend to listen. Check this out.
Jamie, we're talking about the fact that you have lent into technology over the last decade, billions of dollars invested across the business. When it comes to AI, which parts of the JPMorgan business are going to be most transformed by AI?
Yeah, so we've been doing AI since 2012. So people think it's like a new thing. Gen AI is kind of new, but not all of AI. We have 2,000 people doing it. Spend $2 billion a year on it. It affects everything: risk, fraud, marketing, idea generation, customer service, and it's kind of the tip of the iceberg. And so we're deploying it. Every time we meet as a business, we ask, what are you doing in AI? What are you doing to serve your people? Why can you do better? What is somebody else doing? So we're freely deploying it and safely. We have a lot of rules and regulations in place for our own data and how we use it, et cetera.
Is it having a material impact on revenues for JPMorgan? If not now, then when?
So we have shown that for $2 billion of expense, we have about $2 billion of benefit. Some we actually can do real detail. We did this, we reduced headcount, we saved this time and money, we reduced errors. Some you can't. It's just improved service, something like that. It's like almost worthless to say what's the NPV, but we know about $2 billion of actual cost saves. And like I said, I think it's the tip of the iceberg. We're getting better and better at it. We know how to do it. As the managers learn how to do it, they're asking more questions. Why can't it do X and why can't it do Y? And then I don't have my phone here, we have a suite, an LLM suite on internal data to do research and summarize reports and scan contracts and do things like that. 150,000 people a week use it. So it's quite productive.
More and more of your employees are using the agentic AI across JPMorgan.
Our own LLM, and agentic is just starting. But that will be deployed over time too. But it's also being used for coding. I mean, it's being used quite broadly now, and like I said, part of it is getting your mind working around how you're going to use this thing, and so our managers and leaders have to do it.
If you look out 5 years, are there more jobs in banking as a result of AI or fewer?
I think people shouldn't put their head in the sand. It is going to affect jobs. So think of every application, every service you do, you'll be using AI. Some to enhance it. Some of it'll be you doing the same job. You're doing a better job at it. There will be jobs that it eliminates. But you're better off being way ahead of the curve and retraining people. So we retrain and redeploy a lot of people. So for JPMorgan, if we're successful, we'll have more jobs. But there'll probably be less jobs in certain functions.
When you look at the spend on AI, infrastructure, chips, OpenAI, it's not making a profit. Loss-making, deals of about $1 trillion this year. The hyperscalers, the spend there. What is your reaction when you see those numbers crossing? Are you comfortable with that kind of spend on the infrastructure around AI?
It's a lot. I'm not sure it's all ever going to be totally spent. I think when you look at big tech, like tech that happens like this, and you go look at cars, you look at television, you look at internet, big money's got spent. There were a lot of losers, a lot of winners. In total, it was productive. So take the internet bubble. Remember that blew up, and the amount of people. You and I can probably name 100 companies that were worth $50 billion and disappeared. But out of it came Facebook, YouTube, Google. So there will be real big companies, real big success. It will work in spite of the fact that not everyone who invests in it is going to have a great investment return.
The $1 trillion AI infrastructure spending, while massive, follows historical patterns of technology build-outs that produce huge societal value despite many individual investment failures. When asked about $1 trillion AI infrastructure spending and loss-making deals, Jamie Dimon provides historical context. It's a lot. I'm not sure it's all ever going to be totally spent. I think when you look at big tech, you look at cars, you look at television, you look at internet, a lot of money was spent. There were a lot of losers, a lot of winners, but in total, it was productive. Jamie uses the internet bubble as an example. Remember that? Completely blew up. But out of it came Facebook, YouTube, and Google. When reports show $1 trillion spending figures, the natural reaction is to question whether this is rational or a bubble. Jamie is essentially saying, yes, it's a lot of money, and yes, many individual investments will fail, but that's how major technology transformations work, and the net result is usually highly productive for society, even when many investors lose money. The skepticism from Jamie, I'm not sure it's all ever going to be totally spent, is grounded in practical experience with big project announcements. Companies and investors announce ambitious spending plans, but some never materialize fully due to changing economics, technical challenges, or strategic pivots. Microsoft might announce $100 billion in planned AI data center build-out, But if demand develops differently than expected or technology changes, the actual spending might be $70 billion. And of course, it could be higher too. This happens routinely in capital-intensive industries. So in Jamie's opinion, the announced trillion-dollar figures should be taken as upper bounds rather than certainties. Although as a quick tangent, if you listen to NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang, he's been saying all these hyperscalers keep predicting out their demand for the next 12 to 24 months, and every single time 6-month ticks by, 12 months ticks by, those forecasts keep getting raised. To bring it back to Jamie, he mentioned cars, television, and the internet. Each of these technological transformations involved massive capital investment. Many failed companies, but ultimately delivered enormous value. The automotive industry's early days saw hundreds of car manufacturers, most of which failed, but the survivors transformed transportation and enabled suburban development, interstate commerce, and modern logistics. Television required massive investment in broadcast infrastructure, content production, and receiver manufacturing, with many failures along the way, but created entirely new industries, changed how society consumed information and entertainment. The internet bubble is the most directly relevant parallel because it's the most recent and involves many of the same investors and companies now funding AI. Jamie mentions that during the dot-com bubble, there were 100 companies worth $50 billion and they disappeared. Investors who bought these companies at peak valuations lost everything. Yet Jamie points out the value that came from Facebook, YouTube, and Google. Companies that created trillions in value and fundamentally transformed how people communicate, find information, and consume entertainment. The societal and economic value created by the survivors vastly exceeded the capital destroyed in failures. From society's perspective, the internet bubble was hugely productive despite being terrible for many individual investors. The overinvestment built fiber optic networks and enabled high-speed internet, created distribution infrastructure, and enabled e-commerce, trained a generation of engineers and entrepreneurs in internet technologies, and funded experimentation that identified which business models would work. When the bubble burst and companies failed, the physical infrastructure and human capital remained and became the foundation for the next generation of successful companies. Google bought cheap server capacity from failed startups. Facebook recruited engineers who had learned at failed dot-com companies. Amazon AWS utilized excess capacity from overbuilt data centers. The parallel to AI suggests a similar pattern could unfold. There will be massive overinvestment, many AI companies will fail, investors in those companies will lose money, but the infrastructure built and knowledge developed will enable the successful companies to create enormous value. OpenAI or Anthropic might fail, but their research and infrastructure will inform whatever succeeds them. Data centers being built may have lower utilization than projected, but they'll exist and be repurposed as applications develop. Engineers trained on AI projects will carry that knowledge to future ventures. The historical pattern is that most investments in transformational technologies fail. You need to pick the winners, which is extremely difficult during the hype phase when everything looks promising. Even sophisticated investors with good information get this wrong a lot of the time. I think Jamie made a good point on timing. The internet bubble peaked in 2000 and crashed in 2001, 2002. But Google went public in 2004 and Facebook in 2012, years after the bubble burst. The biggest winners emerged after the excitement died down when practical business models were being built on the infrastructure created during the bubble. Similarly, the biggest AI winners may not be today. They might not be the high-profile startups, but companies founded 3 to 5 years from now that build practical applications on the infrastructure being created today. If you found this video of any value, why not consider hitting subscribe? Cheers.